Ladies, what is your he is probably a keeper green flag? The things he gets excited about sharing with me, if it's thoughts, feelings, little jokes, something he saw that reminded him of me, a book or song he liked, all of these are things we can have conversations about to explore what we have in common, or at least where we can agree to disagree. Also, if I ask him if he wants to go somewhere with me on next night, and he says yes without asking what we're doing or where we're going, that level of trust makes me happy. I do this with my girlfriend now, and she seems to love when I talk about things I like. When you get into a fight or disagreement, but you both still want to work things through without harboring resentment towards each down the line. Yeah, I hate my wife for never agreeing to do this. Shortly after I started dating my now fiance, he and I took my then 3-year-old sister out for frozen yogurt for her birthday. He helped her eat hers since he didn't want any and I was eating mine. Then he taught her to play Connect 4 and let her do the 3-year-old thing where they make up their own rules so they win. At one point, she looked up at him over her shoulder and said, "You're the best big brother in the whole world." She doesn't have any other brothers, so he's her first. My heart melted and I became 100% certain that he was who I needed. To this day, if my sister is asked who her sisters are, he gets listed with the rest of us. Usually before me. He's definitely a keeper and I'm super grateful for him. Now that's amazing. Work had shipped me from my home in Canada to the UK for 3 months and for the first time in my life I was actually homesick. My then boyfriend, who didn't really know my friends well yet, dropped them a line letting them know I'd really love to hear from them. But don't tell me he'd asked them to do it. He's an introvert too. So very out of character for him to approach people like that. I didn't find out he'd done this until we'd gotten engaged and my friends were glad I'd finally realized he was the one for me because they all knew back when he asked them to help with my homesickness. We've been married 14 years now. That is so sweet and so amazing. Thanks for sharing. I guess everyone has different green flags that work with them. But my moment of when I knew I was going to be with my so for the rest of my life is when I slept over and I was on period. I laid on my back in my sleep and woke up and realized I bled on the bed. I panicked because it was only my 3rd time spending the night and he got up and asked me what was wrong. I was so embarrassed, but I told him, and instead of being grossed out or anything he asked if I was okay. So while I went to the bathroom to clean up he took care of the old sheets and put on new ones. When I came back up he acted like nothing happened and we cuddled and fell asleep. He's an amazing person in so many different ways. I'm a lucky woman. TLDR. Boyfriend changed bloody sheets and didn't make a big deal or think it was gross. How they help you deal with all your crappy situations. My mother and I are currently estranged due to her mental illnesses and alcoholism. It's hard to deal with the coupling of the two, and has abused me verbally, emotionally, and mentally. I've told my current boyfriend about my fears, my sadness, my baggage, etc. when it comes to this, and he doesn't say a single awful thing about my mother. He of course says things like "you deserve better," "I'm so sorry, she shouldn't do that to," etc. But he has never called her any kind of name or even passed any kind of judgment on her. Also, if they compliment your personality, you want variety, not an exact replica of yourself. I was eating some of my then boyfriend's, now husband's, ice cream while we were walking, after polishing off my smaller cup a block before, and gave it back to him. He said, "Have more, I don't want to eat all your ice cream." He laughed and said, "I always get a large, so you can eat part of it." Then I realized all the things he had done in the time I had known him, small considerate things like that, and he never mentioned them or wanted thanks. That was his green flag. How he treats his younger sister. They're the closest siblings I've seen at that age gap, 19 and 10. Usually older brothers are distant, but he takes personal responsibility to give her a richer childhood since their parents are too busy. In my experience, the larger the age gap, the closer the siblings. I am a middle child with an older brother and 2 younger sisters, and we are all about 3 years apart. We are on okay terms now, but growing up was a crap show. We'd been friends for years, so I knew he was a good guy, but I guess the thing that really sealed the deal on my opinion of him was the first time he traveled across the country with me to meet my family. We went out to lunch with my grandparents and sat in a gazebo to chat afterwards. When we were ready to leave, he waited for my grandmother to approach the steps and helped her down. That kind of respect and consideration for others is a really good indicator of personality. He also took her wallet, which is just sound financial planning. I went on a cruise, and when I came home, one of my closest friends from high school was living in my spare bedroom unbeknownst to me. Several months before, she had invited me to a Halloween party that she was throwing with the guy she was living with, 3 hours away. So I invited this guy who I had just started dating. Several months later, she got his number from a mutual friend and called in a panic saying she needed to move out of her place before her boyfriend came home. And without flinching, he left work and drove to her place, helped her pack quickly and brought her back to my apartment. He had only met her that one time before, but he knew that he had to save my friend from an abusive situation, and he knew that I would have never turned her away. I knew I was going to marry him that day. Thank you for reminding me of this story and how I need to tell it to my son so he knows what type of man his dad was before he passed away. For whatever reason I just so happened to stop reading it. I knew I was going to marry him that day. Then I read the comments. Everyone was sad. I looked back up, saw the sentence I missed, and now I'm sad. He takes me seriously even if what's upsetting me seems ridiculous. My favorite example, I suffer from nightmares, not just regular bad dreams, but nightmares that are terrifying irrespective of the contents. The first time I had one of those while we slept together, he woke up as I was crying next to him. He took it seriously even though what I explained had made me sad and scared me and the dream made no sense. If I remember correctly, my dragon had traded its wings for butterfly wings and had in the process lost the ability to hear. It was sad and I couldn't comfort it, and for some reason I knew this thing would lead to its death and he scared me shitless. I had trouble going back to sleep and he started nodding off. He caught himself falling asleep and didn't want to leave me alone there, so he sat up, put my head in his lap and stroked my hair until I started falling asleep. Then he lay down again, which woke me up a little bit so he would hold me and stroke my hair again until I fell asleep in his arms. Never before did I manage to sleep so well after one of my serious nightmares. I must apologize because your nightmare made me chuckle more than is reasonable, but I am sorry your dragon did that to himself. I can see the majestic butterfly dragon and I am getting sad he would die because of that. I had been out of a relationship with a critical narcissist butthole for not that long. If something happened, it meant I caused it or did it wrong. Especially when cooking. He would hover over me and tell me how I was cutting carrots or onions wrong or not using enough heat or whatever. Mind you, he was no chef, but he loved telling me how my way was wrong in everything. Fast forward to a camping trip with my new boyfriend. I was frying up bacon on the camp stove. To my surprise, it stuck to the pan immediately. Usually the fat greases the pan. He came over to see how breakfast was coming and if I needed help, and I was spewing apologies left and right. I'm so sorry. This is so stuck and shredded. I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry, he says. It doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be bacon. I married him. I think one of the biggest things for me in a situation like that is if they can teach you the correct way to do something without being condescending or making you feel bad. I had dated him for a few months, then broke up with him for stupid reasons. He wanted to stay friends. I ended up sleeping over at his house over the summer a lot, FWB kind of thing. And when we went back to school in the fall, he asked if I wanted to go on a road trip several hundred miles to a friend's wedding. I'd never done a road trip like that before, so I said sure, and I realized we were both totally comfortable sitting together in complete silence for hours and hours, listening to music or watching the world go by. He gives me the confidence to try new things and go new places, where I always feel at home as long as he is with me. Been together 10 years this spring and married 3 this past August, expecting our first kid actually around the time of our 10 years together anniversary. When he brings up something I said a month ago in a mundane conversation, melts my heart when I realize he actually listens to me when I talk. I have a bad memory, but if someone makes a promise I will remember it for years. Hi, my biggest green flag for my relationship is knowing that I can go over to his house and not have to talk to him the entire time and still enjoy being there. The comfortable silence is something I've only been able to achieve with one, so it's a great thing when it happens. Caring for others and small acts of kindness. Before we were even dating, I noticed my now husband clearing plates for people and washing the dirty dishes at our mutual friend's house after a big gathering so our friend didn't have to do it later. As a bonus, he emphasized that knives should not go in the dishwasher. I went over and offered to help him as an excuse to flirt. We got married a year and a half later and will celebrate 6 years in January. He doesn't follow the cliches, but actually gets to know you. X. He doesn't just bring you roses because every girl loves roses, but he brings you sunflowers because they remind you of fall and that's your favorite season. Or he just lets you know that he enjoys you being in his life. My wife isn't big on flowers, so I bring her Chipotle. How they treat others, or talk about others. Not just tipping well, but talking to people, asking them questions to further conversation, showing interest in people in my life. If I mention my friend or sister, it goes a long way for them to ask, oh, how is friend's sister doing? Did she end up doing this, etc. It's easy to talk about red flags, but green flags, oof, that's tough. When he cried as hard as I did about my cat who I had 14 years died. He only lived with her about 2.5 years. She had a little mailbox on her cat tree and one day I found letters he wrote to her telling her he missed her and they had been written over time and they started off really depressing and then got more and more positive, saying things like, today I missed you but I was happy thinking I had you in my life. He also helped me set up her grave in my parents' woods and bought a chime to go by it and occasionally brings her flowers. Dang, that's cute. Sorry about the cat. A few months into dating my current boyfriend, we were invited to hang out with 2 mutual friends of ours, who are currently exploring the idea of dating. So I guess it was a double date of sorts. We got dinner and hung out for a while, eventually going back to one of our friends' houses, drinking wine and having a good time. Towards the end of the night, I went to the bathroom, only to find that I'd gotten my period. Heavily. I'd bled through my underwear and all the way through my shorts. I texted my friend, the one whose house it was, and asked her to discreetly bring me a tampon, which she did. She told me that I must have bled onto her sheets, because there were a few red spots that she previously assumed was spilled wine. I was mortified. I asked her to bring me my boyfriend's hoodie so I could tie it around my waist and hide my stained shorts. She brought it to me, then told me, your boyfriend is now shirtless in my room. I was confused. Then she elaborated. I asked for his hoodie, saying you needed it. Turns out he wore nothing underneath it, so he's shirtless now. We left quickly afterwards, and I had to tell my boyfriend about the whole situation. He didn't make a big fuss about it, but comforted me since he knew I was embarrassed. But I realized something. He didn't even know why I needed his hoodie when my friend got it for me, and he didn't even mention that was all he had on. All he knew was that I needed it, and he gave it up without a second thought. I think about that moment a lot. OMG cute. Awesome story. I logged in just for this. Picture this. A casual night in with a few cocktails and enjoying each other's company. I make a trip to the bathroom and while peeing I check my phone. The usual. Reddit. Facebook. Oh, I missed a phone call from my sister. Well, it's late in the evening and I'm a few drinks in. Better call her back tomorrow. Then I read a text from a not so frequent sender. Auntie Diane. Hey, I am sleeping. Could you please collect pictures of Pa? Double quote. WTF. In a panic. Still on the toilet. I call my sister back. She confirms that my Pa has passed. I make it back to where my boyfriend is and keep in mind he last saw me going to the bathroom upstairs, happy-go-lucky and enjoying the night. I return as a mess unexplained. In sobs I explain the news and just fall to the ground. Without hesitation, he picks me up and carries me to the bed and literally holds me all night and just listens to me babble in sobs, trying to keep me calm until we eventually fell asleep. Even though this is a sad memory, it warms my heart to know how much he cares for me and how he is there for me. He is such a wonderful man. Please don't make me cry. He's often told me, It's not a good day unless I know that I've made yours just a little bit better. He'll often surprise me with little treats such as chocolates, letting me keep his sweater when I'm cold, and always making sure he's there for me when we need someone to lean on. I honestly don't know what I would do without him. I'm half Korean and my mother speaks broken English. Most guys don't know how to talk to my mom and act like she's a circus freak. But when a guy talks to her like she's a human being and not a sideshow, it means the world to me and makes my heart melt. I think everyone should treat their friends' so's parents like a human being, especially when they speak other languages. It's already hard enough in their daily life if they have trouble with the language. I got really sick a couple of months into dating my boyfriend. I was in and out of hospital for 2 weeks, including a 5-day stay in the maternity ward, which was the only room they could give me. He was there from the time visiting hours started at 7 AM till the nurses asked him to leave at 11 PM. I was unable to move because of a botched lumbar puncture. He took care of me, made sure I got to order my meals and was okay in the bathroom. I honestly couldn't thank him enough. He showered me while recovering at his family's house and helped me through all the doctor's appointments. I know he will be sticking around and do anything for me if he got through all of that. When he doesn't speak badly about his ex, my boyfriend would never really say anything about his ex-wife other than to talk about things with their daughter. I found out a few months into our relationship that she had cheated on him multiple times and just generally been awful to him. It says a lot when someone doesn't trash someone else even if they probably deserve it. For me, just being a kind man in general. I broke my back about a month ago and was currently dating a guy for a couple weeks. In short, he broke up with me because I'm in a back brace for at least 3 months. He only wanted sex, and being a 17-year-old girl, it was a good lesson to learn. My brace has been a deterrent the past 2 months, but I know a nice guy will come up soon. A lot of HS guys are freaking dongs. Source was one of those guys. I guess when I realized that I could confide in him when I was upset and we could actually hear each other out and come out of disagreements stronger instead of ignoring each other and then never bringing it up again while we both seethed in silent resentment. For someone who grew up in a crappy butt home, there's really something to be said for a guy who's stable and well adjusted. It's like I now have a barometer in my life for normal, healthy, functional behavior. We have discussions instead of shouting each other down or giving each other silent treatment. It still blows my mind that things can be this great. For me, it's when someone has an in-depth interest in hearing what you have to say and shows it through their body language. Also, men who love all kids and their innocence, who smile at giggling kids and speaks to them with such positivity. Body language is hard. I am genuinely interested in almost everybody around me, but persistent eye contact makes me dizzy. I think all the green flags for me boil down to them being a person who shows you they're committed to being a team with you. Like maybe you mention how a friend's boyfriend is a bit rude or sexist. Then later when that boyfriend makes some stupid remark to get a rise out of you, he'll make a funny comment as an in-joke between the two of you to show you he's on your side. He makes you laugh when you're sad by singing funny songs or patting your back in that way that only he can do. Maybe he makes you coffee exactly the way you like it or turns up at your work with a muffin on a bad day. He has a way of touching you that makes you feel treasured and valuable. He calls when he says he will, and follows through with plans. He makes an active choice every time one is offered to commit to your relationship. A lot of our fights have been because of miscommunication or a lack of it. We've learned to remind each other how to love each other as we need it. We're still working on it, but relationships, personally, are always a work in progress kind of thing. I have multiple mental issues. 4 years ago when we were dating in high school, he didn't exactly see what happened at home very often. We currently live in an apartment together. I was really worried he wouldn't love me anymore because of my breakdowns and anxiety attacks. I was actually surprised when he tried being there for me, even when I was really aggressive. He's stubborn about not giving up on me and being there for me. I know it's stressful and frustrating for him, but anyone who is able to tolerate the wreck of a person I am is a keeper. It was dissertation deadline day for me and most of his flatmates, and he'd stayed up half the night at my house the night before to help me proofread. Then in the morning he went to campus ahead of me so that as soon as I was finished I could email the dissertation to him to get printed and bound, just in case I had any travel delays. I met up with him, we handed in my dissertation, and then he gave me the key to his flat so I could let myself in while he carried on helping his flatmates with their dissertations. I hadn't slept in about 40 hours, or eaten in about 20. I got to his room, and there was a sandwich with a note telling me to eat it and then go to sleep, and that he loved me. It seems like such a small thing, but I couldn't believe that in the midst of all the chaos of helping everyone, he'd thought about exactly what I needed, and that he'd even found the time to rush home and make me food. As soon as I saw that sandwich I knew I was going to marry him, and I was right. We're getting married next month. We had been dating almost 2 years at this point, but this definitely helped solidify it for me. My boyfriend had to go to Boston for a conference, and I couldn't go with him because I was in university and had exams at the same time. First time we've ever really been apart for a while, so he knew I'd really miss him. He gets there, finds out hotel has no internet, which was how we planned on talking while he was there, unknowingly to me, until he got back and told me. He walked back to the airport every night just to get Wi-Fi to say goodnight to me. It was super sweet. Edit. We are still together. Celebrated 5 years in May and moving in together next year. He lets me talk about nerdy stuff like D&D and video games, and he watches my favorite game dev write his code with me, and he asks questions about it and even makes jokes. That's a top tier mother right there. He's gonna get laid. Well, I'm a dude, but I have a really sweet green flag story about my wife. When we were first dating, we went shopping at this giant outlet mall, and happily walked a fair distance into the mall without either of us taking any note where our car was. There came a point when we decided to leave and it dawned on both of us that we had no idea where we had parked. Our response was to calmly talk out where we had been, and retrace our steps. It took us over half an hour, but we found it. My ex prior to dating my now wife was incredibly uptight, and that situation would have been extremely stressful with her. But realizing that I could calmly and politely communicate with my wife made me realize how perfect she was. Reddit. She's everything I ever dreamed of. I'm so lucky to have her. It really is the small things. Notices I'm shivering, puts his jacket on me, noticed I'm getting a little grumpy, gives me food, sees I'm tired, wraps a blanket around me and snuggles with me, knows I'll be busy studying all night, drops off a coffee, and leaves so I'm not distracted. I'm stressed out, pets my hair and feeds me chocolate. It's those amazingly thoughtful actions that make me feel like he is a keeper. He is the one in my life who knows what I need and does what he can to make it a little better. When I met my husband, I'd had a terrible marriage with a man who was well aware of my bipolar disorder but spent 10 years berating me for not being normal or always wanting me to be like everyone else. We'd been dating a year when we were talking and I asked about how he felt about my bipolar and he told me that he didn't mind it at all because he never knew which damage he was going to be dealing with and it kept life interesting. That's adorable. Lucky you. Had mine within 30 minutes of meeting my husband. My roommate invited him to a party at our place, and when I went to walk past him to grab something from the fridge he reached out to tickle my side, trying to be flirty. He had no idea that I have severe PTSD, and the unexpected physical contact made me jump about 3 feet away and start hyperventilating. I was used to guys being immediately offended, or at least really weirded out, so when his reaction after I told him what was wrong calmed down was to say I'm so sorry, I had no idea. Would a hug help? I feel really bad. I kind of started to fall for him right then. It might sound stupid to some people, but I had never been treated with basic respect by a man at that point. I always got the stop being so jumpy. Not all men crap. Dude, it's a reflex. I can't help it. It hit me pretty hard in a good way, so I accepted the hug. And he spent the rest of the night asking me about what music, movies, books, etc. I liked. He ended up staying at my house for 3 straight days because we couldn't stop talking. I guess I've got lower standards than a lot of other people in terms of what I consider a green flag, but respecting my boundaries results in an instant yeah, I want to keep you around. TLDR. Man showed me respect for the first time in my life. That was the green flag. Married him 4 years later. Hey, you know what gushers look like, right? So you know what a bunch of gushers stuck together is? A complex carb. He understood the joke without me explaining anything. We started dating a month later and we've been together for 4 years. Understand their nerd jokes. You can't go wrong when you have the same sense of humor, no matter how stupid the jokes can be. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.